Know what side the blank's supposed to be? Okay.
Have to be deliberate.
I'm pointing out signatures on a contract. Okay,
Yeah.
it being 6:30, call this meeting of the Manchester by the Sea Select Board to order. Jeff.
Yeah.
Brian,
Yes, yeah.
Kathy,
Here.
Ann, here, John.
John is here.
Excellent. The first part of this meeting is going to be open to public comment. We're trying to open every means of communication we can think of. And we have a communication from Hope Watucci, which she has asked to have us read. And I have a copy of it. If no one else does, I will read it into the record. Assuming I can find it again.
Here.
Ah, you printed it. Thank you. Would anyone else like to read it?
No,
Okay,
the other chair, congratulations.
this is from Heather Watucci. I don't know her address on here.
It's indigenous name.
Okay. Hello, Manchester Select Board. I am unable to attend the Select Board meeting this evening because I have a North Shore Pride Board meeting on the same date and time. As such, I would ask you to please read my comments from this email into the record as part of the public open forum portion of the agenda this evening. As a veteran, Lieutenant Commander of the American Legion Post number 119 in Manchester, an active town volunteer and an LGBTQ+ person living in this town, I was frankly appalled to read that the Select Board is considering erecting an additional flagpole to be located in a different prominent place for ceremonial flags, such as the LGBTQ+ progress flag that has flown on the quote-unquote town flagpole for the last 4 years with the Select Board's approval. I have to ask the Select Board, what has changed since it has been permitted to fly there? The answer, from my perspective, is that a small number of veterans who speak publicly at meetings against the flag raising when I request the flag to be flown each year have decided that they want the LGBTQ flag, progress flag, not to be flown near the Veterans Honor Roll. The bigger question, in my opinion, is why? Does this small group of people feel the progress flag degrades the honor roll, which as I have mentioned before, bears my name and the names of many LGBTQ+ members who served or are serving in the military from this town? A reminder that the town flagpole has always been in that approximate location and that the new flagpole replaced the older one when the Select Board approved moving the Veterans Honor Roll to its new and current location from a different location on the town common. I would also like to ask the Select Board if I were to bring a petition in support of not erecting another flagpole with more signatures than on the smaller group's petition, who don't want the LGBTQ+ progress flag flown at the town flagpole in its current location, would that change the Select Board's decision to hire a landscape architect to find another location, as was approved at the last Select Board meeting? Another example of the Select Board decision-making to side with a small group of veterans is this year's July 4th parade, in which the MBTS Parade Committee selected a Community Star Grand Marshal to lead the parade. As procedure warrants, a typical parade is led by a single color guard, and then the Grand Marshal, who is honored. However, this year, a few members of the Legion insisted that their Legion contingency lead the parade ahead of the Grand Marshal. The decision was sent to the town administrator from the Director of Parks and Recreation, and then on to the Select Board. It was sent to the Select Board, but at a time when we couldn't possibly meet. And I didn't consider it, this is me, of course, separately, appropriate to call an emergency Select Board meeting to consider this. To the Select Board, who again stood with a small contingency of the Legion members / veterans and permitted the Legion contingency to lead the parade ahead of the Grand Marshal. At a time when divisiveness is growing even wider nationally, as well as in this town, why is our town leadership not willing to work together with our ever-growing diverse community instead of trying to hide us away on another flagpole? I have lived in this beautiful town for many, many decades, and yet the attempts I have made to make this town more welcoming for diverse persons is never without contentious dialogue from a small group of veterans. I know we can do better, and we must do better. I look forward to your response. And that's Hope Waguchi, 2 Putnam Court, Manchester. That's the first public comment.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience who is here for public comment? Yes,
I'm Isabella Bates, 2 Masconomo Street. And I just want to put on the record how proud I am of the MBTA committee that has worked so hard on behalf of the Manchester residents to propose a plan for the overlay. Being a Quaker, I have been part of committees doing the work for a long time, and I know there always seems to be somebody who feels that when a committee makes its proposal, they can just ignore all the endless amount of work that they have put into it and decide to start from ground zero as if nothing else had taken place. So I just want to support the work of this committee. And I know there's some fine tuning that's going to probably happen after it comes back from the state. But I just want to say that I think that we can't say enough about the work of this committee, and I just applaud the work that they've done.
yes.
My name is Sylvia Friesenderp, also Masconoma Street, on the other end, 52 Masconoma Street. Well, Isabella said most of the things I was going to say, but I'll add a few more things. Is that people sometimes forget that all this work, including yours, is done by volunteers in their spare time, if they have any. And so I also appreciate the amount of work that's been going on for a month. And I particularly appreciate that this committee has done a tremendous job on finding out what were the objections, what was the concern, what were the fears about this changing the nature of the town. And I think the end result that has been sent now to the state, it really shows that they have listened to the people that were worried about our town changing, because I don't think it will with the plan that has been pushed. So that's been sent to the state. So I join my voice to Isabella's about just deep appreciation for all the work that's been done by all of you volunteers.
Yes.
I'm Axel Magnuson, so at 52 Masconomo Street. And I'd like to say a couple of things. One, I'm having read the materials that have been presented over time and the proposals that went to the state for review. I'd like to say that I think that it's a very wise proposal because it minimizes, as far as I can interpret, it minimizes the impact that this will have on the town while actually opening up some possibilities for new housing that weren't there before. And I'm one of those people who believes that the housing options need to be expanded in town, and believe that this makes one step in that direction and maintains the character of the town. So I think it's a very wise set of proposals that have been created by the second thing I want to say is that the process is that the planning board has gone through in this time has been one of trying to engage citizens in the process of thinking this through. And I know, having been on several committees myself, including for a while at least on the master planning committee, that getting citizen engagement is incredibly difficult. There are all sorts of reasons for people for not engaging, not thinking through. And as a consequence of that, we know what often happens at town meetings when people haven't been engaged, haven't been thinking through what some proposal means. And I think that the efforts of the planning board this time in working this through have been remarkably successful. I've been to several events in which not a huge number of people, but a substantial number of people were engaged in thinking things through and becoming informed and actually making proposals. So I'd like to put my word in to thank the planning board and the rest of the town for being involved in this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone online?
I don't see any hands.
So if no one else has it, I have a comment to make. Part of the public non-agenda items.
Okay.
Kathy Bellata, 21 Pine. So I sent an email last week to the chair of the task force and to Mark Resnick, because I live in one of the neighborhoods that is impacted potentially it's by the MBTA zoning proposal. So I can't walk my dog these days without people asking me, Kathy, what do you think? So, not getting rid of the dog. So what I am hearing from my neighbors are they would like to see the rest of the story. So I 100% agree. The task force has done an outstanding job coming up with a proposal that is compliant and minimizes the impact of the town. Fantastic job. We also chartered them to do something else, which was to assess the impact of that. So some of the emails I've received or conversations have requested an impact study. I think when we chartered the task force, I forget the exact language that we use, but we asked them not just to propose the zoning, but to be clear on what the impact would be to the town. And I think we have a lot of that information, but it is scattered in multiple places. So I emailed the chair of the task force and our town planner to ask if they put it together in one document. You know, make it easy for people to see both the positives and the potential downsides of the proposed plan. Because when you implement large scale changes, it's just a basic document that's usually part of that process. So like I said, I think we have a lot of that already. And if we just compile it in one document, make it easy for people to look at, I think that would help with some of the conversation and the transparency. So.
If I may.
You know, I tend to be really literal. You say impact, and I say, well, nobody's hitting anybody.
Okay. So,
Gotcha.
Specifically,
usually-
what sorts of things are they concerned?
So I'll list a couple of things we already have. So on the website, there is a list of potential grants that we would lose if we did not say yes to the proposal. Everybody frequently asks about, well, do we have enough capacity in our water and sewer pipes? And I believe Chuck has said many, many times, the answer is yes. So those are just two examples of potential impacts or risks.
Do we need to increase the police force?
Enrollment in the schools, we know it's down and we have plenty of capacity, but if the average person has to look through the entirety of the town website, the school website, in order to get those pieces of information, we're making it really hard for
So you're talking
them,
about
unnecessarily so. So that's really, you know, some consultants will call it a risk opportunities analysis, others use the phrase impact study, but basically when you're implementing a big change, you do want to try and foresee what else changes, what's the domino impact, so to speak. So, and again, I just think we can make it easy.
So you're talking about a frequently asked question.
No, this is
Because
this
they're
is-
there, those are there. Oh, yeah.
frequently asked questions is, can, you can have a summary in the frequently asked questions. What I was referring to was some type of, here are the potential impacts from a capacity standpoint, operational services, and here's the data to back it up, why we think there's not a problem. So it might be an executive summary
Yeah.
around here are the operational services, whether we think there's an impact or not, and that could be just a few pages, and then an appendix, okay, here's the analysis Chuck Dam did on the water and sewer capacity, and here's why we think it's not a problem. So you start with a very simple summary, and then you back it up with real data, and that usually answers those questions.
The other thing that I would wonder if people were wondering about is what impact this will have on the valuation of their property and their tax rate. And
Absolutely.
I haven't a clue how to figure that out, but
Right, and I think, and the reason I emailed the chair and the town planner was because sometimes we feel a document needs to be perfect before we publish anything. And it's been my experience, if you just tell people what you know, and how long it's, if you don't know something, how you think you can get it, or the fact that you really don't think you can get it unless you spend $1 million, you still go a long way to answer the concern. So anyway, just wanted to let you know that I had that conversation.
thank you. Is there anyone else here who has comments?
So someone has their hand up.
Yes,
They just have initials MBTS. So I don't know who it is.
okay.
Hi, sorry, it's Mary Foley, One Pulaski Drive.
Hi, Mary, go ahead.
Hi. I wanted to thank Kathy for raising that point. I know it's been bantered about, but I wholeheartedly agree that we need a professional financial analysis along with the impact analysis, which includes part of the financial, and then I forget the exact term of the report, but it's kind of like a probability of build and where. So with the proposed overlay districts, where is it most likely to be built within the next year, within the next 5 years, within the next 10 years? Those studies are very helpful to have. And I think that's what residents are looking for, that they can see a report, not just people spewing stuff out at a meeting that may or may not be accurate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here who would like to make a comment? It doesn't have to be about it, zoning. This is open listening session. Yes, sorry.
This could be about anything.
Yes.
Sylvia Frisenberg, 52 Mascanoma Street. I recently went to the beach to buy to get two stickers for my grown children when they come and visit. And I was really actually quite aghast that I had to put down $70 for 2 beach stickers when I pay about $24,000 in taxes to the town. It seems like if we pay taxes here, why do we have to pay as residents? Why do we have to pay for beach stickers? That's my question.
I assume you mean what you
Passes.
call
Passes.
walk-in tags.
Passes.
Yeah, the walk, yeah, why aren't they given free to residents, as that used to be the case way back?
I guess first answer is that we do offer them at a lower price before the season, but yeah. Yeah, right. Okay.
Well, isn't it that we used to request payment for car stickers and the passes, 2 passes came with it?
Right.
And so the model has changed where the sticker is free and then the passes is what you know, so, but
Mhm.
So it's an incremental cost of about $20-30.
Well,
Something
it's
like
$70 for two people, and you used to get two.
Two stickers
Two
for
passes.
40,
35.
35 per
So
car.
the reality here is if you were to buy them pre-season, it's to $5,
Right.
which I failed to do, but my kids pay to walk on that school. Take my car, that's about it.
Yes, Axel.
Axel Magnuson, 52 Mascanoma Street. As many of you are aware, there's a lot of construction activity on Smith's Point in terms of the demolition and new construction going on. And second thing that's happening on Mascanoma Street is that there are a lot of landscapers who park on the street, not in anybody's nice long driveway. And last week, there was some kind of fire alarm on Smiths Point Road, requiring the fire trucks to get through Mascanoma Street, through at least two of these landscaper trucks parked on the street. I'm concerned that they don't need to be on the street. And when I see them, I usually actually call the landscaper up and say, hey, move your truck. There's not really room for a fire engine or an emergency vehicle to get through.
Mhm.
And I keep doing that and keep doing that, and I'm tired of doing it. And I would like to see more police enforcement of the parking regulations.
Forgive me, I don't remember what parts of that area are no parking on
at
the
any
street.
time,
No parking.
anytime.
Yeah, I don't think there's any parking allowed on Mascanoma Street. And it's not so much the issue of no parking or parking. It's these large trailer vehicles that can't get any closer to the edge of the buildings or the fences or whatever. And there just isn't room for a vehicle to get comfortably by. And that's particularly bad around, I forget what number Mascanoma Street it is. It is the, we call it locally the Garage Mahal. The four parking garage building.
Six.
Six parking, anyway. So it happens occasionally, but you know, we had a tenant in our house who was in his 90s. And he, in his last 2 years, had to be picked up by the ambulance a couple of times. And, you know, the timing is everything. You know, if one of these trucks is on the road the wrong time when somebody needs the ambulance or the fire engine, then the minutes that are lost in getting by are uncomfortable minutes. That's the reason for my bringing this up.
I recently talked with one of our parking attendants who was on his way off to White Beach. And I personally was not aware of the problem on Mascanoma Street. Perhaps you could suggest to Todd that when one of our parking attendants has a few minutes, they might make a pass through Smith's Point looking for, probably during the week or Saturdays, looking for. I think a few tickets would bring that to their attention even more than your very kind calls.
And I think that the other thing is that it's not so much about occasional people occasionally parking at Emmanuel Church or even down at Lobster Cove. It's it's Thursday and Friday, not so much the weekends that it gets to be pretty noticeable. And, you know, often think that there are alternatives for these landscaping trucks to park themselves someplace else, but that's not happening. Thank you.
Anybody on the board have?
Summertime.
Yeah. Thank you very much for coming.
We have a few minutes. I'd give you just a quick update on construction projects this summer. We did meet with our contractor on the Mill Street, Forest Street, water and sewer line extensions. We did those last month and they're wrapping up a couple jobs now, so it doesn't look like full construction will start until around September 1st, which I don't think as a town we have any problem with that. It's just, obviously there will be traffic impacts at that time. That job will probably start on the Forest and Ancient County Way intersection, which some people might be familiar with. So just so people know, I mean, they'll be kind of a routine job, but people will see stuff probably middle of August. So we won't have any impacts for summer traffic. Obviously, we were going to be into school traffic at some point with those jobs. The other project that we just opened bids on a couple weeks ago was the Pleasant Street cleaning and lining. They're looking to, because they're wrapping up, it was actually the same contractor won both jobs. So they're looking to put a crew on each, starting on or around September 1st. I'm not sure what day that is, so generally that time. So that will be starting up as well. My only kind of response to that kind of programming was to make sure that they don't have both contractors kind of on the school street impacting school traffic at the same time. So, one or the other. But certainly both projects will be going on at the same time. So just so everybody watching this or sees it, hears it, look towards the end of summer for more construction from DPW. We will have, prior to that, the full width paving on Walker Road, which was from the water main improvements that we made over the winter. So that paving needs to get done. The reason we haven't done that paving yet is because we were TVing the sewer line, make sure there's no issues with the sewer before we paved, and ends up there's about 5 services that are tall chimneys on top of the service, or on top of the sewer. And we need to line those and rebuild them prior to paving, which will require a dig. So we were hoping that we would just line the sewers, align the laterals, and not have to impact the roadway. But because we have to dig those chimneys, we will be in the road. And we want to give that a month or so to settle before we pave it. So that sewer work's only 5 laterals, probably 5 digs. So that'll happen in the next couple of weeks, but then it'll be about a month before we can pave it after that.
So walk me through in the months. You're thinking about paving starting in October or November?
Nope. So this month, July, we will be doing the dig on Walker Road. Later in, say, late August, we will pave Walker Road.
Okay.
Around the end of August, beginning of September 1, I'm calling it for the purpose of today, is the water and sewer work will start on Forest and Ancient County. And within that same time frame, around September 1st, another crew will get started on the Pleasant Street lining, which the lining work is only pits every so often. So that's less impactful than on forestry. It'll be full dig and replace all the way down. So that'll look a lot different to people driving by or, you know, waiting for traffic. But we will have signage and more alerts and, you know, write-ups in the cricket and, you know, all that stuff kind of as it gets closer, but because we're looking to kill a couple minutes, I figured.
This is going down Antrim County Way too, or just?
No, just from the intersection where we ended the work a couple years ago,
Yeah.
right at Forest, we left a
Just gonna keep
path
going
there.
down Forest.
Keep going down Forest.
So a relatively construction-free summer. is what you're telling us.
Being out for next year, John.
I know that's a promise.
Well, thank you.
Is the forestry work just sewer or is it water and sewer?
No, so we're upsizing the sewer main. Right now it's a 6-inch old cast iron water main. That will be removed in full and a new 12-inch line will be put in its place. And then where the sewer system actually ends right now, we will be extending a 4-inch force main all the way up Forest, down Mill, and eventually it crosses over 128 to the MAC. So that's the kind of new sewer. And that's the extent of the sewer. So that will be on Mill Street. On Mill Street, we actually don't need to do any water main work, just the sewer.
Okay.
And we are leaving, you know, new service lateral connections for the sewer for any abutters that may want to connect in the future, because right now all that area is septic.
Okay, I think we've finally reached 7 o'clock. Thank you very much for providing that information.
As long as you're here.
Anything else you want to talk about?
Right. The next thing, the chairman's report, I haven't got anything to report. And action items. Are there any action items that we want to add or change or? Okay. Now we go into a continuation of the public hearing on water rates.
I move that the select board reopen the water rates public hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? John?
Yes.
Anne says yes. Kathy?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Jeff? Okay. Let's see. We've all read. I have how to start this. Chuck, you've given us a lot of information. I guess several of us, 3 of us were at the finance committee discussion of this, and the finance committee came back saying that they thought that starting low would be a good idea. I disagree with their suggestion in one area. And the idea was that to start with a surcharge that applied to replacing the water meters. And since the water meters have different prices for different size water meters, it seemed to me that it would make more sense, rather than having a $10 fee on everybody's bill, to have a fee on each bill based on the size of the meter that was going to be installed. And pay off the meters. If we were to pay off the meters in 3 years, let's see, a 5/8 meter would be $24.08 a quarter. A 3/4 meter would be 3/4 inch meter would be $28.16. A 1-inch meter, $41.67. 1.5 inch, $63.17. And a 2-inch, $90. And that would, given the prices that I was given, pay off the physical meter, not the installation, over 3 years. And we can monitor, you know, what happens when the bills come out and people see that they're getting a surcharge for something specific. But we can also, I think, defend charging the water users for the meters that they get.
I agree with you. This was the first question I was gonna ask tonight. Actually, at first I want to thank Chuck.
Oh.
He sent us a very nice, concise memo outlining the past conversation and your recommendations. So I just want to thank you for that. It was really well done.
It's good that somebody here is polite.
No, it was right on target. It left me with the question though, how much variation is there in the size of the meters, the cost in each side? And you just answered that, Ann. So I'm thinking what you're thinking is that if someone has a small meter, they should pay a small cost. And if someone has a big meter, they should pay a big cost.
And if somebody has
Yeah.
2 meters, they pay it twice.
Yeah, I mean, it's a physical thing we're replacing, and I think we could absolutely defend that pricing model. So.
I see the suggestion that Chuck made, and for 5/8, 3/4, it's $25. You were very close. You were backing into the math, but you came up with numbers that were very, very close to that. And I'm okay with Chuck's suggestion. You did say the larger meter is about 5 times more expensive, $25 to $100. That's close. I like the idea that we wind up collecting maybe $500,000 a year, because then you're looking at having this paid off in, say, 3 years.
Yeah.
You don't have your numbers yet, but they're gonna be somewhere around that.
I
So,
think Ann's referencing the actual costs right now
right,
versus the potential costs in the future. So, there will be.
Yeah, I mean, we can
I
start.
get it. It's just a number and.
We can start with these numbers. If the bid comes in higher, next year we can readjust so that
Yeah.
they're paid up in 3 years.
but I like the idea of kind of getting this paid off, looking at this point saying, we're collecting money for meters, and can we knock this off in a reasonable amount of time?
And if I recall the conversation from last time, if someone has a larger meter, they may not need it. So they actually have possible control over lowering their cost by opting for a smaller meter, as long as that makes sense for their household. I think this puts the control in the homeowner's hands. And
Yeah, I like the idea of people paying for what they get.
Someone else.
Yeah, right. So I like that idea.
Can I just ask you guys a follow-up question then? Would you like to see the fee started to be assessed after we get the actuals? Or do you think it makes sense to start at maybe a quarter earlier than?
Let's start it at the next opportunity based on these numbers and adjust it next year. Make it work.
So starting in.
My suggestion.
I was wondering, what happened to the discussion?
I think we're having it.
So Ann, you're saying starting in October?
Yeah.
Fine.
I know you.
Do
started to do
we,
that.
just a question for Chuck, do we have a communication plan to let people know about this fee?
So I mean, I have discussed it with Tiffany and she's aware that it's coming. We held off on, kind of formalizing any specific plan because we weren't sure if it would be adopted at all or be that, what the kind of numbers. would be.
Could you enlighten us as to what? the-
So, so she was looking at putting some sort of information in the quarterly, tax bill, that opportunity, as well as the billing that we do on the water and sewer side. And then I think from there, we would probably end up having a, town link or, when, as the project kind of evolves. So we'll put all the information.
Might I suggest that we delay it 1 quarter, put the mailing in October to advise people it's coming and prepare for it? And then first quarter,
Yeah, so I'll get with Tiffany and find out now that if we're agreeing to the parameters you guys just laid out, when the next opportunity for a mailing is and where that lines up with our billing and, any potential
I
fees.
think that we should give people a little bit of time.
So then the people who don't get a paper bill, they get just an online bill, they would get an email?
I guess I'll have to talk to Tiffany about the specifics of who's. Yeah, I don't know if there's a list that says these people are on the online system or not. If
Well,
there is, then.
let's put it this way, I get an online bill. I don't get a paper bill, so
So I don't know.
we just need to understand how I don't know what percentage of the population is like that, but.
Neither do I. I've never really had to think about it, so I'll get those answers. We'll get everybody.
When you're putting out the information, be sure to let people who have underline the fact that if you have 2 meters, you have to pay the fee for each meter. Because that, you know, somebody's, I got this bill and my next door neighbor got that bill and that's going on.
Yeah, we'll lay it out.
So do you want to go with the numbers that you said? Or what numbers are we using?
Yeah, what numbers are we gonna use here?
So, I didn't write down the numbers that Ann quoted. Chuck,
Yeah, so Ann was very exact. I was definitely more rounding, so.
okay,
Yeah.
That's the difference.
but were they, indicative of the estimated cost? Or what, did you factor something else into your numbers?
I think Ann's specifically citing the cost to buy the meter, whereas my numbers were kind of taking a little bit more holistic approach of, and not knowing if it was just paying for the meter or just they're paying for a kind of a more all-in cost.
Yep.
So that's the difference. So she's citing literally the exact meter cost that we pay right now divided by.
But yours
$12.
might include some installation
Yeah,
or.
I was not looking at it that detailed. I was like, here's a nice round,
And
25 up to 100 or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So, I'm fine with Ann's numbers. That's just what hers, that's the difference.
My numbers quarterly for 5/8, 2408.
I know, I'm
I'm
just,
making them very specific because I think we want to make the case right now that we are asking people to pay for their meters.
Yeah.
And if we do round numbers,
Yeah.
particularly if you have the same numbers for 2 different sizes.
Right.
It's
It's,
not the same.
well, so what we.
okay, 2408.
Yeah.
3/4, 2816. 1 inch, 4167. 1.5, 6317.
About 1 1/4. Did you-
I missed 1 1/4.
Okay,
So that is, we have those in the system, but that is, excuse the term, a bastard size, like that's not a typical size, so we have something that's in my database, but that's not something we
so
typically.
would we use the 1?
So
or
we would, that person would explicitly have to say, give me a 1 or give me a 1.5, probably. But,
So we're
Yeah.
spacing out the 1
I wasn't splitting these hairs when I was
Okay.
doing it.
Oh, and
So then
and
we
I'm
got-
good at splitting.
There you go. Split some more hairs. Okay,
Okay.
1.5. What's the 1.5?
1.5 is 6317,
6317.
and 2 inch is $90.
90. Okay.
That happened to work.
All right, and
How about would you be open to us just rounding up to the nearest dollar? Rounding up, so we get rid of the cents, or do you really want to be this exact? Because I'm, given what Ann has communicated, I'm a little less comfortable with Chuck's numbers. For example, the 1 inch meter, it's double the cost
Yeah.
than what Ann has. So I think we just need to decide which numbers we're going with. And if Chuck's does include some installation, I'd be okay with that, but.
Again, that was, we're kind of building it up differently, so there's.
these are numbers right now that you have from somebody, but not
This
necessarily.
is what we pay when we buy a census meter, which is, we're kind of brand specific right now.
Right.
So if you come to the door and say, I'm doing an addition, give me a 5/8 meter, I would charge you whatever Ann said times 12.
Okay, fine, but that is not necessarily gonna be the number when you put it out to
Yeah,
contract.
that's what we said, yeah. So people will give us their best price for, 2,000 meters, not the one-off, I need one off the shelf.
Close enough is what you're saying.
We'll round up to,
Round up to $1, but $1. I think that's a good idea. You know,
Okay, so that would be $25 for the 5/8. That would be 29 for the 3/4, 42 for the 1 inch, 64 for the 1.5, and 90 for the 2.
Yep.
You good with that?
That's still gonna be pretty close to your $500,000. Because the number of meters up at the high end aren't very many.
Yeah, exactly.
and when you get the bids in and we review this stuff again, look at it, decide whether we want to include installation and, this is Not a one and done. Are there other?
Comments?
There are, but let's finish on the board first.
Okay, yes,
So Phil. Has a hand up,
okay.
Philip's iPhone.
Yes, hi, Donna Thursday, Blossom Lane. Quick question. So I don't know when the meters are going to be installed. So will the charge start even if you don't have it installed yet? And will we know when your last payment is done and it'll be automatically taken out of your bill? I was just wondering, like everyone's gonna get started paying at the same time and then everything stops at the same time with regards to being charged? Just curious. Thank you so much.
So the latter. So everyone would start the same and everyone would end the same regardless of when they got it actually installed.
Right, because they won't, the goal is to pay for the whole amount over 12.
Right, so we're instituting this for 12 quarters. When you get yours installed will vary depending on a number of factors. But that's, so it's a,
What's the install period?
We will be done before the 3-year period.
Well, I would hope.
So, yeah, I was planning on giving the contractor a year.
Okay,
We probably won't get 100% in by a year, but that'll be, kind of the starting point. There's always some that are harder, ownership changes or people are out of town or away for the winter. There's gonna be issues that we have to resolve over time. But in general, like 1-year duration.
you're expected to start kind of the end of this year,
Yeah, I think installation,
November, December.
hopefully, end of calendar year 24.
Okay.
So if you, with the next water bills that are sent out for for Q2 fiscal year 25, you just do a communication. Are you suggesting that the new fee would be added to the Q3 water bill? Is that what we're saying?
That'll be my goal.
Which starts January.
January.
Anyone else online?
Sandy has her hand
Yeah.
up.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great, thanks. Sandy Rogers, 82 Old Essex Road. I guess I have a question about the whole process. Is there going to be instructions someplace online where you sign up? How do you know what size you need or how many meters you need? Is there going to be a priority list? And I guess I think it will be very important to understand who's actually doing the installation and what those costs are versus just paying for the meters. I think the whole sort of process, the whole total cost to residents should be understood and laid out before like starting to charge for meters. That's just, can you provide a little bit more insight?
So, yeah, I guess I would say, Sandy, the project in and of itself has been approved, at town meeting and the subsequent bonding. So we always said, and I believe I said at town meeting when I was asked the question, how are we paying for it, that we were going to be discussing at our rate setting, a potential capital fee that would, of course, go to the meters and potentially other things. What we're talking about now is, I would say, by and large, only for meters. The rest of the project is already approved as well. We're not, as of right now, based on this recommendation, not trying to recoup the whole cost. So the delta between what we collect to pay for the meters and the entire project cost will be borne by some combination of the enterprise fund, just on the rates, as well as taxation. So that's already been approved. That's, the budget that we're working within. As we go through, now that the project is approved, we will go through an RFP process where we evaluate several different manufacturers, not only their meter, but also their meter reading system. And so the idea there is that they all do it a little bit differently, but at the end of the day, we're looking to give the customer as much information as possible in the palm of their hand via an app or a web-based interface with their meter. And so that is part of that RFP process. The installation part will be a separate bid solicitation where we'll have a third party take the meters that we buy in the RFP process and install them. And that process will unfold, like I said, over probably about a year, probably a little bit longer to get into 100% of houses, because 100% of houses that are getting water bill need to have a meter. And so that right now has not been determined. There's no necessarily priority, but part of that installation contract is for the contractor to respond with, how many crews they're gonna give to Manchester, when they're gonna be. There will be a website where if some folks would like to sign up so that they're kind of at the top of the list, because they're like, hey, I want my new meter and my new, app today. There'll be others that, frankly, we'll have to email them and mail them and leave door hangers and say, we've tried 3 times to get into your house. Would you please, come and schedule an appointment? There will be online forums that folks can go to. There will be calls. There will be, there's a whole bunch of coordination that gets laid out in that installation contract process that has not been kind of done yet, but it's pretty standard in the meter industry, how it works. I think that answers all the questions, but that's generally, and we won't know the cost until we get that contractor's response. And
So it's everyone in town getting new meters?
that's the intention. Yes.
And if you don't want a new meter, you're still going to have it, you're still going to be paying for it anyway.
Yeah, so I'm not sure where this, has kind of come from, but there is no opt-out of a meter. The meter is something that the town and, any enterprise has to have to register the amount of use at a property. So meters are kind of, and that's what this fee goes to pay, are really not an option. Never looked at it that way. There's never been anyone in town that I know of that doesn't have a meter. We are kind of required as a utility to know how much water is going to each place, and that's what we base the bill on. Sometimes meters don't work or there's extenuating circumstances, but it's not the intent to not have a meter. Now, what some people, there are a couple in town that have opted out of is the radio that transmits the reading on that meter to, right now we have a drive-by system, before it was touchpad systems, but to my knowledge, there's only 2 that, have decided that they want to opt out. We can potentially talk about opt out. I think we need to know what vendor we're looking to select and what their technology is based on before we say that people are allowed to opt out, because it's not a thing that anybody has opted out of except for 2 right now. So to opt out in the future seems to me to be something that's never been discussed at the town level, and certainly not something that is in practice right now.
So I would personally be very careful with a opt-out option, because anytime you introduce variation to a system like this, that introduces all sorts of human error and also cost. So if we get into a discussion on opt-out, we should fully understand the total cost of those opt-outers, and they should pay for that additional, because there would most definitely be an additional cost that the rest of the taxpayers should not bear, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I agree. That's what, it hasn't been discussed yet because we don't know, frankly, what the technology will be or anything else. So it's not, the project as it's been stated has been approved, and, circumstances change, then I'm happy to discuss it further at a later date.
Yeah, I just think it would be very helpful at the get-go to outline the different phases, whether it be the paying for the meters over the period of time, the installation, what the estimates of both the meter costs and the installation costs may be. I know you don't know the exact amounts, but I think that's important. And also, if everyone, even if you've gotten a new meter recently, that you are going to be getting a new meter. Because everyone in town is going to be on this system. And then obviously the pros to, using the system. But I think it's important to get all of that out because I, for one, I'm not sure what even my system uses, what it would require, what the benefits of the different sizes, all of these different variables. I think it's important to get those details out. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Yes, sir.
Mike Shaw, 12 North Street. What was the reason, everyone has a meter now, what's the reason besides we're changing them all?
So the majority of meters, like 70–80%, probably 80 or 90%.
Yeah.
Are around 20 years old. And so that's the useful service life of the meter. So the old school meters, especially in this town, are positive displacement meters that have moving parts that over time they degrade. So we're looking to upgrade those at the same time is the right time to introduce some sort of program where you will have an app-based usage kind of, at your fingertips, because the technology is also much different, for that end of it now than 20 years ago.
Is there a cost savings in the long run, or is this,
Well, so the idea, in general, older meters, especially the type that are in town, under read. So cost savings, I'm not sure you know what that means. It's in my world, the under read, so you're under billing, so that means our rates are artificially high because we have mostly fixed costs on the water system. So to get a more true estimate, and I can't tell you that your meter is under reading and your meter is not. So this kind of gets it back to a starting point. I will say the new, we'll see what the bids come in at, for each different kind of variation, but the single jet meters that we would likely get now have no moving parts. And so it's, much likely that the service life of that meter will be much longer. However, in both what we have now and in the future, there's a battery warranty on that piece that's transmitting. So that will be the next thing to probably break after we get new meters.
Okay. And to that point, I know at least the one that spoke at town meeting, if you'll have real-time information, if you do have a water leak that you wouldn't know about until you get the next quarter.
hundreds of gallons of water on the ground?
Right. And I know
So
that one
that's
person
causing
had
to you and
had a first person accounting of how she was able to find out. And then by following this, she changed her water usage. Okay. So, and then started yelling at her husband for taking long showers.
Do
So
we
we're just
know
doing-
right now what size meter everybody has, or do we have to go in and look?
So we do have a list that has meter size. I'm not gonna guarantee it's 100% accurate, but it's
Right,
close
but
enough
it's
that I
an
base
idea.
these numbers on it. So,
Yeah.
I don't think I'm gonna be off by, 10% on each meter size, but I might be off by, 2 or 3%.
To that point, we could tell Cindy what size, she knows, we can tell her what size she has.
And like you said, I saw there. 2,000 out of 2,600 are either 5/8 or 3/4, the smallest.
So we have Billy, Mary Foley has her hand up again.
Okay, Mary?
Hi, thank you, Mary Foley, One Pulaski Drive. I did want to let people know that there's a bill in front of the House still pending on these smart meters, smart wireless utility meters that, as of June was extended for residents of a community to opt out for health reasons or other reasons. Utility companies needing to give 90 days notice before installation, et cetera. So I am watching that closely because I believe I would be one person that would want to opt out. And so I would be interested in what the town's plan is for that as well. Thank you.
So just to make sure people are clear, everyone apparently has a radio read. There's radio frequencies coming from everyone's home today. So we're not changing. So that's just an important fact that people should appreciate.
So there's been bills of this nature in the House, I'm not wearing my shirt today, but my previous meeting, nobody knows, was Mass Waterworks shirt. So, I'm very connected to all the ongoings, legislative side when it comes to meters and water systems in general. And I've never seriously seen, a large scale, bill to be passed. There's many bills that go in front of the legislature all the time.
I think we can say that we will watch what's happening.
Yeah,
in
so
the
we too will be watching and
And we will follow the
trying,
law.
yeah, we will certainly follow the law and, go from there.
Anything further? Is there
More
any-
comments out there? Then I move that the select board close the evidentiary portion of the hearing.
Second.
Further discussion? John,
Yes.
and yes, Kathy?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
John, Jeff?
Yes, the other John.
I
He does this a lot.
It's a J.
do that. When I call you Kathy, then you should be upset.
Okay. All right, speaking of.
Kathy should be up.
Yeah.
The name tag. so she can read it.
I move that the select board add a meter fee to the quarterly water bills, beginning with the Q3 fiscal year 25 bill in January. And I will read off the following amounts. For a 5/8 inch meter, $25. For a 3/4 inch meter, $29. For a 1 inch meter, $42. For a 1.5 inch meter, $64. And for a 2 inch meter, $90.
Second.
Yes.
Discussion? John says yes, Ann says yes, Kathy? Brian?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chuck. It's taken a long time, but. I
Always get there eventually.
Thank you, Chuck.
Did you talk wood?
Won't even get a scar from this one. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. Our next item of business is quarterly reviews. The police chief is listed first.
Jake can go first. if you want.
No, you were listed first. You gotta go first.
So you got my memo?
We did.
Did?
Just want to comment that it's very Jake McNeely-ish. Very very well done.
So we can go through it in the interest of time. I don't know if you have any questions, just let me know.
Lots of pictures. Like,
I added some pictures of what we've been doing.
On graphs and everything. This is.
Yeah.
I think you've given us a great deal of information. Perhaps we can ask you questions.
Yeah.
Kathy?
I think the memo was great. I really appreciate the community policing efforts and the preparedness. That was I think we had a really outstanding order there. I have a question around the emergency preparedness, the tabletop. I know we were collectively a little disappointed that maybe it wasn't as Manchester specific as we would have liked the after action review. So are we taking any action to do some Manchester specific after action review? Because we collected a lot of good information at the tabletop. So I just think.
Yeah, so one of the things that we were just talking about, was looking into the Starlink,
Yeah.
communications.
Yeah.
Out of that tabletop exercise, we have started the Cape Ann Emergency Management Planning Team again. Which we had our first meeting the other day, and now we schedule meetings throughout, I think, into 2025. Yeah. Quarterly meetings. So around that, we haven't really talked Manchester specific yet. However, that could be something Jake and I can.
So I think if you're the leader of this wonderful tribe, right? There are some infrastructure related things, right? That not necessarily fall under your bailiwick, but Chuck already left, but you know, we know we have to harden some infrastructure and we have to do all of that. I just want to make sure we don't lose the information that was collected at the tabletop that was Manchester specific. And it, like I said, it may not be directly related to police and fire, but it's about us preparing our infrastructure for some of the nasty scenarios we talked about. But other than that, I thought it was really well done. And my last question is, there was that procedural manual, the real long one on the shelter.
Sheltering.
Yes, so another very thorough document. I'm curious as to who is supposed to have those
So,
and where they are.
so there's one in my office, Jake has one, and now that it's finalized, I actually ordered some 3-ring binders. I'm gonna put one in the selectman's office. And
Okay.
And then
That's good.
everything's electronic.
everything's electronic.
No, but I'm glad to hear about the paper because in the type of emergency we discussed, you may not have access to your electronic documents, so good old binder is just fine. Thank you. Really well done.
Really not much. There's a lot here. It looks like we're moving forward and things are on track, so
We're
thank
on
you.
track, yeah.
Yeah.
Just want to give a huge shout out to the collaboration between Parks and Rec, DPW, and police for the 4th of July celebration. I had a lot of positive feedback from residents on how well it was managed and how well it, things transpired over those two days. Wasn't for the teamwork between the top 3 people, me, Chuck, and actually 4, including Cheryl and Bion, yeah. It wouldn't have gone so well, so it's a huge success, I think, with little incident.
I just want to point out, and as the chief mentioned to me on the 3rd, is the NEMLAC presence, okay? And the money was well spent when we decided to join. I think you would have burned through that money.
And offices from outside, as far away as from Sutton, Mass.
We would have burned through that money. And we still have opportunities in the future. So I think it was a great decision, well coordinated.
Just because there may be people listening who don't know what.
NEMLAC is.
It's a Northeast Law Enforcement Executive Council.
Yeah, see that.
Okay, and.
It basically will give us, if we have say a barricaded suspect, it will give us access to like SWAT teams or entry teams. Will give us RRT teams, which is teams that come in on bikes or on foot to help us for exactly what we did with the 4th response.
So in addition to a barricaded suspect, it allows you, gives you access to.
Resources.
Shared resources that are
Right.
trained in these specific incidents that come in and help us.
Including managing huge crowds on the 4th.
Crowds, yeah.
Right.
So there's a community policing aspect
Aspect
to
of
it.
that.
And that I thought it was excellent. Thank you.
John.
Yeah, it's great report, summary thing, and I know that a lot of the emergency management covers several different groups, although it was consolidated under your report. I was curious there, I was at the session that I guess maybe was the first session that grew out of that with the seniors
Oh, yes.
about a month or so ago, which kind of conveyed that information to that particular group, and that's a very important group because they're at a bigger disadvantage than others in this sort of situation. Are there plans to kind of go after other groups? And I know that's kind of a tough thing to do.
Well, we did the elderly, the seniors, and we put together, I put the pamphlet in there.
Yeah, this
that we put
brochure, yeah.
together, so that's been distributed. We haven't really talked about that. But I would hope that we could, target with the SRO, and, maybe the local voters and stuff like that.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I'm just wondering, it's a little hard. The seniors are pretty obvious target and easy to look at. But that was great. And July 4th went well. Your community policing, of course, we're high season for community policing. People will know if community policing is going on in July and August.
July and August, yeah.
And
Especially with the ice cream social. How many students we have? About 150?
I missed that.
That's awesome. Nice.
Sorry, you weren't eligible.
In your report on parking enforcement, can you You
Yeah,
didn't
so
touch on that
the
yet.
safety
Talk
sticks
about
are
that.
up and running. We have 3 parking enforcement officers. We just got the 3rd one within the last couple of weeks. He's still in finishing his sort of field training, as we call it. But the safety sticks seem to be working. It approved, I think, 15 tickets from over the weekend this morning. Rejected some because they're still working out a few bugs because they're still issuing tickets after 6 PM. So we gotta be mindful of that.
All right, how long is the pilot supposed to go? Is there any specific end date?
There's no end date, really.
Okay,
We're
all
gonna
right.
see what it looks like probably, I would say Columbus Day weekend
Right.
timeframe, and then reevaluate it.
But these sticks work 24/7, 365.
Yeah.
Okay, and you've got the parking, those folks are on, what, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I think? or-
They're on every day, 7 days a week.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
I did not know that. That may change my behavior.
And just to be clear, we're only issuing parking tickets.
Overtime parking.
Oh,
Well, they're only enforcing it from 8 to 6.
Right, understood.
The overtime parking for the 2-hour parking is 8 to 6.
Right, after that, it's not. Okay, great, but it's a great summary and it was a lot to read.
Yeah.
But,
So actually, just on that parking, I had a question. So some of the signs, when it comes to like the resident parking, we say we only enforce it from May through October. For the 2-hour parking, is that enforced year round?
Technically, it's supposed to be this.
I know it's supposed to be, but I think, so when you move to an electronic enforcement mechanism, sometimes you have to reevaluate what you used to do manually and whether or not you're still gonna do it. So I think maybe end of September might be a good time to evaluate what you're gonna do with the safety sticks, because if it hasn't been enforced in the past, when the summer goes away and people start getting tickets and they see a bunch of empty spaces, that may not work out so well. It's just something we gotta talk about, you know?
If we have the personnel, we've always done it through at least Columbus Day week.
Okay, so that's, whatever it is, I just think the communication is important, because automation makes you do things faster, and sometimes that's not.
your report was very complete. Something that came up a little bit earlier is that, and you may have overheard, there's a problem on Smith's Point with landscape trucks parking in areas where parking is not allowed and blocking the road, making it difficult. for-
Yeah, Lieutenant McCoy's been handling that. He's spoken to the residents, spoken to the contractors. They're doing the best they can with all the construction over there. And sometimes they just cannot park in off the property. So the road's never been blocked. If it has been, then
Okay,
we'll keep an eye on it.
yeah. Yeah, it doesn't seem as if it should be up to the residents to call the contractors.
And again, patrols are aware of it. They'll, if they have the time and nothing else going on, that's what they'll do. That's what they'll do.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions from?
Daisy's doing well.
She's doing well. She's in training. So maybe at your next meeting, we'll have her officially sworn.
Yeah, when she graduates.
End of this week.
End of this week?
End of the- What's that?
Can we have the swearing in of the puppies?
Yeah, yeah.
Right now, they're spending a week trying to train her how to raise a right paw.
She's doing good. She's been well received.
Mhm, I know.
So far.
How, have you been in touch with the schools about their, policies on dogs and working through that?
I haven't been. I think Andrea might have been, so I have not. I will follow up on
It's hard to do anything with schools.
school. Yeah, right now with school.
In that case,
That's all I know.
I think, thank you very much.
All right, no
For
problem.
another good quarter.
Sounds good. We'll see you next quarter.
Oh, you'll see us before that.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry, my report was a little late. I didn't get it to you till Friday, so you probably have paper copies and not electronic copies. For the fire department, everything is going very well, knock on wood. We had a couple of mechanical issues actually today, so I spoke too early, but they were fairly quickly rectified. We have a couple we have to deal with tomorrow, but overall, everything is going well. I think that, you know, in the past year, we've had a significant change in morale. The cohesion between police, fire, DPW, I can't say enough. We're all working together and there's a common goal. And I think everyone knows what that goal is and everyone's striving to work towards it. So I think we're in a good position, so. Other things I've mentioned in my report, just not so much as a quarterly report, but just kind of going forwards, what we're looking for in the next year. There's a new OSHA mandate that is going to be, I don't know if you had a chance to watch it, it's going to be quite cumbersome coming forward if it actually gets implemented, which it sounds like it will in the next year or so. And then we'll have like between a year and maybe a 3-year implementation timeframe based upon those requirements. Most of it, I think we're already on a good path for it. It's just going to be time consuming, I think, more so than, there's obviously a financial aspect to it as well. But policies, procedures, standing operating procedures, guidelines, things like that, all of that to be revamped. They're taking basically the 1976 OSHA regulations that haven't been updated, and instead of just doing like a 5-year revamp, they're bringing them all the way up to 2019. So there's a lot of things in the fire service that's very hard to change. So they're changing it in one fell swoop. So there's a lot of pushback, but it does look like it's going to be forward. So he's going to have that on the radar of things to come.
So might that require new trainings or?
So
equipment?
training, equipment, there'll be, as long as it's more the apparatus would be the big dollar figure, but as long as we kind of stick to what the apparatus plan is, as far as I can see, they haven't obviously published the law in black and white yet. That apparatus replacement plan kind of matches with that OSHA requirement. So there's nothing kind of out of the ordinary with that. Trainings, which were already started doing monthly trainings, they'll just be more specific and detailed of what needs to be done when versus us coming up with our own kind of risk benefit analysis of what we do in trainings. So we would dictate it to us versus us being able to choose.
Yeah, okay, very good to the point summary. I like your summaries because it's kind of like in a bulleted format. It tells you exactly what you need, less reading, which I like. But a question, so your comment with regard to OSHA, is that the one-liner here you've got with regard to CST in particular?
So yes, CST coupled with that is all those things kind of combined is going to have a drastic impact on at least my day-to-day, as well as everyone who tries to pitch in and help out a little bit.
Okay, but it affects what? So some of the equipment we've got as well as training, both of which are budget items.
Yeah.
There's no question. Well, we'll wait and see what happens with that.
It does sound, oh, not to interrupt, but it does sound like we always say 2 in, 2 out. That 2 in, 2 out, I was worried it was going to get worse. They're sticking with that as their guideline. That was my one kind of worry, that they were going to actually up what that requirement was going to be. So they're not. So that was actually
All right, that's encouraging. Now, you do have the one line. We're still borrowing a couple of fire engines.
Yes.
The ladder, okay. When we get our new ladder truck, are we going to become a lender rather than a borrower? How much of that time is that truck going to be spending here?
Our truck?
Yeah.
That truck's not going anywhere.
All right.
So the Peabody is nice enough. They run 2 ladders trucks. They have a third. So we're borrowing the third. Where we only have one and we run one, that's going to be here. The Linfield truck, it's been very nice to have it because they're renovating the stations. They don't have the room to store it. I gladly said, hey, we'll store it. You can use it. So the concern kind of with the engine is obviously we've done a huge financial investment in apparatus. However, looking in the shortish / mid-range is the turnaround time of a fire truck. Once you order, it's 3 years right now, and it's been increasing about 6 months every 6 months. So it's pretty long time frame to get one. So I'm just looking at our apparatus replacement plan versus actual time to receive. So that worries me a little bit, just the kind of the reflex time, if you will, for getting new apparatus.
Okay, all right. And last question. So you've got a full force now.
Yes.
Nobody's out on training, everybody's,
Everyone's in certified. One of our probationary firefighters will be coming off probation this week. And that will leave us with 2 finishing up their probations over the next year, and then everybody will have a year in. And
okay, so OT would start to really get,
I think we've seen the
Going
fruits
down.
of that already. I think it's going really well. Obviously, July with 4th of July and vacations and stuff, there's always a little bit of a tick up. So I don't use July or August as kind of benchmarks, but if you look at the 3-year average, it's gone significantly down.
it's great to have a stable force that's been years. Great.
Glad to see that the overtime is under control or working that way. That we gotta, we're getting up to a full force. And one thing I just want to comment, that I've seen out in the community is there seems to be a lot more camaraderie between the departments. And I think it's really felt in the community, so I want to thank you as being part of that.
Yeah, we're only a small sliver. I mean, all the departments kind of play a role in that. And one of the things actually coming up this fall is police and fire softball between Essex and Manchester. So all 4 departments are getting together. And I think things like that, as small as they seem, actually, you see some fruits of labor on that.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Call firefighters.
Yep.
You advertise again.
Yep, so we had 4 from our last hiring. We are budgeted for 3 to 4, to add an additional 3 to 4. I think that's a good number to get to the 6 to 8. I think that's manageable. The problem, comes to cost benefit analysis with regards to training, because that's a huge thing. So when I'm kind of going between adding 3 or 4, it depends on the candidates coming in, how much we're gonna have to train them, and looking at the overall onboarding costs. So I don't want to hire 4 and then all 4 of them need everything. So it depends on the candidates that we get, but we've had good feedback on it. The call participation, like I've said before, I'm delightfully that I was wrong. So I can admit that I'm wrong, and it's worked out well, and it's really added. It allows me to sleep a little bit better at night knowing that, we have consistent people coming back, and, even just one person does make a difference. Having that 4th person or 5th person on the call makes a huge difference for, reducing, risks of a lot of people that we just carried somebody off the rocks down by the beach up a quarter mile the other day. So you can't do that with 2 people, so the staffing.
That also speaks to the culture. Being able to retain a call firefighters, and for that, we thank you.
No, just want to, I was going to call firefighters as well. Glad to see you asking more applicants to come forward. I think it's a great program. Thank you for all the training. I love to see, I think you got a great social media presence too. I think that goes a long way to helping the residents understand where their money is going, and so you do a great job of that as well. And I did have a question on the SAFER grant.
Yep.
How do we anticipate using that, considering we're fully staffed, right?
Yep.
So I thought, I'm a little confused about
Yeah,
that.
so we know that we're gonna have 2 retirements coming up in 2 years. We know if we use historical data that we'll probably have a 3rd migrate to another department, so that will onboard us. We might be heavy for a period, but we know that there's a transition date.
Got it. Okay, so it's not about adding staff, it's just to manage the transition period. Got it.
Looking at our risk going forward and things that change, am I gonna guarantee that I'm not gonna be up here asking to add staff? No, but I'm realistic that we don't need 13 firefighters in the station, the NFPA standard. But having 4 to make sure that somebody's in a burning building, we can go in and get them. I want to make sure we can meet the minimum.
Are you
Right.
getting any better data from the regional center?
Yes.
So can you give an example of some data that you're getting from them that's helping you with the staffing?
Yeah, so our data, we correlate our calls into 2 categories, still tones and all tones. So a still tone is something that the on-duty crew can handle, or a basic medical emergency, a car accident not on the highway, things like that. So they actually go through, and by the questions they ask, they determine, do we need to call back off-duty staff or we had it on duty? So before we'd have to take the best guess because we didn't have the information available. So now we actually have a better idea of what's on-duty crew can handle versus what we're calling people in. And the data flows right into our new reporting software, which I shared with you guys on the monthly reports. And with that data, we can kind of figure out where our, I know weekends, Memorial Day to Labor Day, my call volume goes up. And, I can prove that. I can show you how many still versus all tones, and then, like 4th of July weekend, things like that. Up staffing makes sense because by the time we call back people 3 or 4 times, we've just paid for a day shift overtime. So making those adjustments makes sense. So I think I'm kind of piggybacking on a question John asked about the apparatus. Or maybe it was someone else, but I'm just thinking when we were talking about apparatus and you're looking at your plan and things are getting more expensive, not less. When you come to us the next time asking for a new apparatus, something big and expensive, I personally would like to know how much time the current apparatus spends in Manchester versus is used for mutual aid. Because our residents are very generous. And I just want to make sure there's a balance in what we send out for mutual we have it
aid.
down to the second, so that's actually easy.
Good.
We have unit utilization hours
Yeah.
is basically what we have.
So I
And then
think
how much
that
is out
type
of
of data
service.
will be helpful and before we ask for something else. Yeah, that's good. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to see the harbor, the police, the fire, the DPW working together. And hasn't always been the case. This is a better town for it. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say thanks enough to, Chief Fitzgerald's Bion. One of the things we sat down, what's our biggest risks that we have? Is that I don't want to say ill prepared for it, that we can prepare better for stuff on the water, especially after hours. That was Bion's been great. We've been cross-training all the firefighters on the safe boat, which hadn't happened previously, so we have some after-hours coverage. It's still a work in progress. We're not there yet, but at least with the working relationship, we're identifying the risks and coming up with different ideas to mitigate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief.
And the next thing on our schedule is interviews of Terry Coleman for Tobacco Woods Land Management.
Good evening. Terry Coleman to Surf Village. There are probably at least 3 reasons why I'd like to be part of the Tobacco Land Management Committee. First and foremost, I owe a pretty big debt. I've been using those woods for 30 years and they haven't done a thing to maintain. So it's year round for me. Hiking, snowshoeing. We take the middle school mountain bike club in there every week, 3 seasons a year. Gets a lot of use by me. So I'd like to pay back a little bit of that debt after 30 years. I'm also on the Bike and Pedestrian Committee and the Open Space and Recreation Committee. And I'm Bike Ped's representative to the Open Space Committee. Both of those committees have on their agenda protecting the woods in Tobacco. Really 2 things: access to the woods, so getting people there safely, and then using the woods. And it's on the agenda for both committees, so it kind of makes sense that we'd add membership to the Tobacco Land Management Committee as well. With that in mind, there's 2 things going on that I'm particularly interested in relation to the woods. First, we're having a conversation with Gordon College, as you know, about protecting land use there. And part of that conversation, so that's sort of the protection, conservation aspect. With Bike and Ped, we're working with the town and with the state on potential avenues for access to the woods. So how do we make it safer, for example? And You know, there's not much in the way of parking up there at that particular gate. And now across the street, we've got a fairly significant operation, big trucks rolling in and out of there now every day. So the situation has changed now relative to what it might have been a year ago. And on the question of access also, I'm working with the ADA committee and the Council on Aging to open up access to the woods to communities that might not be fully represented there currently. So more people using it wisely, safely. Third reason is that the group that's working with the land does it out of a labor of love. I went to one of the meetings recently to find out a little bit more about what they do. They handle everything from painting the gates to putting up the signage, to putting blazes on the trees, to pulling out invasive species, making sure the maps are in the kiosk at the front area there by the parking lot. So, and they're doing this on a daily and weekly basis. No compensation, of course, on their own, emptying the trash barrels and so forth. And these are all things I can do. So I think I'm at least qualified to paint the gate and so forth. And also, they're missing 2 Manchester representatives right now, so they're a little understaffed. So I'd like to make sure we get that up to, and I think I can probably recruit somebody from Manchester to fill up the last spot. So that's my story.
Catherine. You know Terry pretty well, and I think he would be a great fit for the committee. And if he says he's gonna reel in some more people, he will reel in some more people. So I was gonna ask you what particular area of the committee interested you, but you did a great job of outlining all of the specific firms you'd like to get engaged. So I think that's great. Thank you. Coming forward again.
You've been doing business for
Yeah.
years.
Fred.
No, just thank you for stepping up.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for all the stuff that you already do, so.
It's a passion of love for me too.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Thank you. You're keeping very, very busy, Terry.
Trying to.
And
I gotta keep with
obviously,
you, that's not easy.
given your lifestyle in terms of the woods and everything, you already know exactly what's going on there. I'm not familiar with the committee so much in terms of Hamilton versus Manchester split. And is the chairperson of that now Hamilton or Manchester or?
Hamilton at present.
It's a Hamilton, and is the split even, or is? Really depends the staffing on
Supposed to
it.
be, I'm not sure, actually, I don't know about that, I don't know how many players budget to have.
How much of that woods is in Manchester versus Hamilton? Is that a driver for that?
It's a majority, well, there's more Hamilton.
Yes.
There is? Okay.
There might be a little bit of Essex too, sure.
You might be looking for a seat.
Yeah.
Well, no, thank you very much. I know you're an excellent candidate.
Are we prepared to?
Okay. Thank you very much. You're stepping forward. I hope you have enough time for all of the things that you're doing.
I'm there already, so I actually, thank you.
I'm on it.
Okay.
I move that the select board appoint Terry Common to the Tobacco Woods Land Management Committee for a term to expire on June 30th, 2027.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yes.
Anne says yes. Kathy?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Unanimous?
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Thanks, Terry.
Okay, and I got a note saying that one of the people for the bike and fed is unavailable. I've forgotten.
And Peter's not able to come
Peter
in.
is not. Okay. Christian Gall. Hi.
You want me up here?
You can talk from anywhere, but if you're there, oh, sit.
Relax.
Yeah. sit right.
I didn't, when they said interview, I didn't know if it would be coming and answering a bunch of questions. I haven't really prepared something as thorough as that, but my interest in being on the bike and pedestrian committee is I've recently moved to Manchester less than a year ago, in early January. I'm an avid cyclist, not just recreationally, but also that's how I like to get places when I come into the village. I live a couple miles towards Gloucester. 27. So I'm on my bike all the time, I'm walking all the time. And I'd love to be a part of making that work for more people here in the town. Because, you know, I actually moved back here after living in central Massachusetts for the past 30 or so years. But I grew up in Pepperell Farm, so I know the area, and it's gotten a lot more crowded since I was a kid. And that's okay, that's what's going on, but I'd love to see opportunity for more walkers and bikers to just be out on the road, feel safe, get to where they want to go, take the time to do it, et cetera. I've seen some great sidewalk improvements on my road in the past few months, and I'd love to see more and be a part of helping advance the mission of the committee. So that's my simple about me.
Right?
No, you're my Becky, channeling Becky Chase, and you have the time to commit to this?
I do, yeah. I'm not currently working. My wife's our breadwinner. I'm the house spouse, so I do have time.
Nice.
You're jealous.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
No, I mean, it seems like you have the time and you like doing it, so it's great.
Kathy?
We had a chance to dial into any of the meetings or speak with either of the co-chairs.
I have not, no. I've read through the minutes. I've seen some of the things that are going on. I have not actually.
I think that would be good to touch base with David or Dana, just to, because they have project, and actually you can just turn around and ask Terry, because he's on the committee too. They have a number of projects that are in
Yeah.
process, and I can't remember off the top of my head, you know, they're always looking for, sometimes they're looking for a specific skill set, which you might fit very well. I just can't remember off the top of my head what they are looking for. But I appreciate you stepping forward and you know, I like the idea of someone, even though you grew up in Beverly Farms, you know, like the idea of someone coming in with a fresh set of eyes. That's always beneficial. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no, it's great always to see somebody, a new person, raise their hand, because frankly, there are a lot of people that show up on these committees and they've been on other committees, and it's great to have new folks get involved because for the very least, new ideas that come through it, all of that. So you haven't spoken with anyone on the committee. Is there something in particular that attracted you to that? I mean, you're the number one qualification, you're already there. You cycle a lot and walk a lot, you say, but.
I mean, really, that is kind of it. I've always been passionate about our towns in America being more bikeable and more walkable, because I don't think we are as much as, like, I mean, if you ever go to, say, the Netherlands, you know, everyone's on a bike. And so I've always just felt strongly about that. Yeah, that's really.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for volunteering. It's plus.
Obviously, since there is a candidate who isn't present, you will not be taking this election tonight. Like Kathy, I encourage you to talk to Terry and others about the projects that they have going on. Thank you very much. Dawn Dyer.
That's me. Hi.
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 Can you give us short why this is great?
My name is Ann Dyer. I've lived in town for the most part of the last 40 years. Raised my kids here. I'm a cyclist. And familiar with the woods, familiar with the trails, familiar with the schools. And I see a little more about me. I'm semi-retired. I spent most of my career as president and CEO of a marketing company. I have over 30 years nonprofit board experience in education, arts. And walking around, riding around town, I've always said, how could we make this better? I get run into on the sidewalk by, a mother, 3 kids on a bicycle, and I ride down School Street on my bicycle or up and down 127. And, I see the brakes are in the wrong direction and I'm all excited because we've got new bike lanes. And I think this is my community. I'd like to participate in this. Obviously, things are happening, decisions are being made. So I was curious. Terry and I have known one another for a good part of those.
30 years?
Yeah. We've ridden together, we've talked a lot. And so I called Terry and I said, I understand you're on this bicycle committee. What are you doing? And he invited me to come and, sit in on meetings. And I've been sitting in on meetings for probably 6 months at least. I've attended meetings. I've participated as a non-voting person. If you were at the 4th of July parade, I designed the t-shirts and the banner and marched in the parade. I have some interesting skill sets. Having been on so many boards and committees, I'm used to working in a style of governance. So even though I haven't been on a town board or a town committee, I understand the process. And I'm incredibly interested in being a part of how we design our town going forward. We have no parking. We have a tiny downtown that's almost accessible by foot or bicycle or razor or train to everyone. I mean, we have so much opportunity for alternative transportation that solves a whole lot of that parking issue and traffic issue. So I'd like to participate. I think we are a very friendly, sweet, quiet town. But we are also kind of a hub for transportation coming in every direction from Beverly up to Gloucester, from Gloucester down to Beverly, from Hamilton to the ocean, from Essex, from Ipswich. So there's a lot of opportunity to be joined with our neighbors.
Thank you. I'm sure we will listen more from you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great that you're already going to meetings and you're up to date on stuff, so.
I'm trying to get up to date on stuff. There's so much history here. That, I have 1,000 questions all the time because there's so much going on.
It's great, thank you.
Right.
I'm good at this point.
Well, I know you've been at some of the meetings because I've seen you at some of the meetings, so thank you for being involved already. And again, if you haven't, I know you spoke with Terry, but if you haven't spoken with David or Dana, the co-chairs of the committee, about joining the committee, I would encourage you to do that as well.
I have.
Oh, great, excellent. And is there, I'll channel Brian here. Do you have the time to commit to this And do you have any, other times with I remember a conversation on one of the committees about, the meeting on a particular day that wasn't working for everybody, and Bike and Pet is a pretty big committee. So I know it's hard for them to find a day and time that works, for all of the committee members. So based on your attendance at the meeting, do you feel comfortable that you can attend regularly at the time?
I do.
Right.
And I also subscribe to, if you want something done, ask the busy person.
Right, exactly. Very good. Thank you very much for stepping forward.
Yeah, good. And new person, new ideas. I love that. We can put that in there. So you sat through a number of the meetings there and you said you got lots of questions. Terry can probably answer all of them.
He knows everything.
I know he does. So, I mean, he's certainly a good resource. From all of this, is there any specific thing that kind of grew out of your exposure that said, we need to work more on this, or is it just really kind of a big palette?
I think there are a lot of things.
Yeah, that's what
I think
right, a lot.
I think getting kids to school on bicycles safely. Making the downtown more pedestrian friendly, because honestly, even though there are sidewalks, it can be a little bit wonky, between where they're wide, where they're narrow, where they connect with parks, where they don't connect with parks, where they connect with car parking. There's so much that is interesting. I think that one of the skill sets that I have, it's not that I know everything that's going on, or I've had involvement in town committees. But I'm a real action-oriented person. And a lot of times I can look at something that has 25 points and pick out the 4 that'll get us where we're going. And I think, having a background in data, I spent my career with boiling information into data points. I think that I can bring something a little bit different into the group. Decision-making by facts. But also I'm an idealist, and I think something like this is a way to make a contribution to making your town, a little bit better, a little bit friendlier, a little bit more fun.
Well, thank you. Good.
And I thank you. I have no questions. So, as I said before, we have one more candidate to interview, and so it will be a meeting. And
Thank you. And just, I think that the committee could operate with, more than one more person. Just from my point of view. I think.
Okay.
it-
Yes. Thank you.
We'll have
Okay.
2 openings.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. 2 openings,
Yeah.
3 candidates.
Yep.
So, yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Um, The next item is the discussion of Morse Pier, Fisherman Slips, and the Reed Park Flips. And this is following on to the planning board's twice extended discussion of those projects. And a part of the reason, this is here is to understand what the select board's position is, in individual members, what their feelings are, about this, and the complaint is that the filings are ugly, and do we really need more space? And pretty much it is.
Yeah, I think the planning board has raised aesthetics, they raised concerns about just the boat of traffic. in the harbor, and the potential loss of moorings. Those are the three items that I have heard in the meetings. I think as we have moved toward Bow and Stern,
Yeah.
a good portion of the harbor, that has greatly improved the channel. It has widened the channel, has made the channel more clear. So I think the harbor is actually in better shape than it's been in many, many decades, perhaps. There have not been any loss of moorings. There won't be any loss of moorings through the extension. Transit docks at Reed. It's following along the railroad tracks where there are no moorings there now.
And the area is narrow, so that even with bow and stern, there isn't room, there isn't a place for.
Right, and to keep the channel is needed to the pier. Certainly from hearing from some of the fishermen, they are very excited to have the option of having slips versus being out on the mooring. It can extend the length of time that some of them can stay in business, just because it's access is much easier from the slip versus the mooring. So I think that's a plus. We certainly have heard from the business community that the amount of transient boaters coming into town and visiting shops has been a real plus since we've opened up the transient docks. It's an important part of their business in the summer. And the last point I think would be the financial benefit to the town in terms of making the harbor not 100% self-sufficient, but this will be an influx of significant money through the expansion of the transient docks and those dollars can go towards dredging and other harbor. So, I mean, the pilings are already there. Most of the new pilings will be along the railroad track, so it's not in the primary view shed. I think the concern is focus on the view from Beach Street, basically between Reed and Masco, that stretch where you have the harbor waters right next to beach. And some of the new pilings for the slips would potentially be in the view shed. Though Morris Pier is right there, so Morris Pier is behind the new pilings. It's there's not a clear view that way. And the linkage between the two, between Reed and the new slips potentially, I don't believe there's pilings that need to be there. I think there's one on either end, but not one in the middle. But if that were the piece that were not to happen, that wouldn't be the end of the world. You wouldn't have that walkway from Masco over to Reed, but people can walk on the sidewalk on the street, so it's not an essential element of the project.
So it would cut off there right before Reed, there'd be like a space. Is that it?
So where it is now
Yeah,
is where it would end in terms of as you get closer to Masco.
right, but as those slips come around between Morris Pier,
So the idea was to have a connector link from where Reed
right,
ends
yeah,
to the new slips, so that you'd have a continuous walk.
right, yeah. That was the plan I saw, was it was.
So that's what it had, and I'm just saying if the aesthetics concerns were such that went away, it wouldn't kill the project. It, you could eliminate that small stretch and still have both projects reliable.
I think that, if we don't do that, people, when it's done, people are gonna say, why
We
did
should
they
have done
finish it?
that, yeah.
Right. No,
Yeah.
there's a good reason to do it, but I'm just saying, if that had to be the piece that didn't happen, it wouldn't be.
That's not the line in the sand or number one.
I heard, Bion talking about bump outs so people could sit, but I wasn't really picturing what he was
So what
saying.
he said was, you know, so the transient dog, right? What
Yeah.
he said at the planning board meeting was that if you see the little tent they have for the staff, it's actually kind of on a bump out.
It's a separate,
It's
small.
Yeah, it's a little-
Yeah,
It's
it's
a small-
a little bump out
Small
and,
close.
and he was thinking we could add seating so people could walk along the water and.
As it goes down beside the tracks.
I wasn't sure exactly what.
That's the part I was,
Oh, 'cause I don't see how
Yes,
you're
that
gonna,
would be,
that's your from.
that'd be the location for it, as you
Yeah.
extend towards the drawbridge.
yeah, okay.
So you could actually sit on the harbor, not.
Yeah, I
just-
mean, that's kind of nice, so
Yeah.
people can.
So I have a question on that design. Right now, there are a bunch of slips for Zodiacs that are on
The inside.
the inside.
Yeah.
Now, if you run that pier all the way down to the railroad tracks, of course, it's a long way to get in. And if you've got a pier at the end of the, at the end of the run, how do those Zodiacs get out? They've got to go all the way down.
They have to go down the railroad bridge.
They'd have to go all the way down to the rail. Right now, they make an end run underneath the
Right, so they'll
walkway.
likely be just stored further out towards the end.
Well, maybe
You're gonna
that's-
you'll walk to it and then hop in.
Well, actually, then you can sell a lot more.
There'd be more
They're
room.
little mini slips or something, I guess. I think all of the people that,
Just.
Well, they're
time.
just tie-ups.
they're tie-ups, yeah.
Yeah. There's no real slip.
No, but they're just tie-ups for them.
But there would be room for more.
Yeah,
And it's crowded down there.
Okay.
yeah. I mean, what
I
are
look at it every morning.
there are 20 Zodiacs in there, I guess, and you make it 60.
Yeah, I don't know if there's that much more demand.
Okay. Did we ever have any kind of an artist's drawing or rendition of this is how it would look? I know we had the plan as you looked at it,
Right. I didn't check with Nate today. I know that he was working with the engineers to see if they.
I
could
mean,
put
I
together-
understand the planning board's
sketch.
saying this is how it's gonna look. I mean, you can see just from a graphics perspective, but.
Right.
Yeah, I think that initially Bion didn't have any money to do a.
Yeah, that costs.
So that wasn't included as far as this package goes. I just want to, as far as traffic in the harbor and safety in the harbor, we have in my opinion, we have a very capable harbor master who can speak to that. And if he doesn't think there's gonna be a problem with traffic or safety, I'm not gonna second guess the man.
I have to say the channel looks better than it has in years, so.
So I had, so I definitely support the expansion. I had a question around there was some discussion at the planning board on what constitutes commercial. So I do think we need to just kind of nail that down. Bion said, in order to use the expanded docks, they'd have to have a commercial fishing license, I believe.
Commercial fishing license and evidence that they're actually using it.
Fishing, yes.
There's
So I think what people were worried about were other types of commercial uses like tours where you kind of have people driving to Manchester to hop on a boat and leave to go on a tour, then you're adding to the parking problem during the summer. So I just think it would be helpful for Bion to just be really clear. This is for the fishermen. Be clear on that criteria. So, and I don't know if we would need to, specifically ban tours because
Probably would be, my guess is it probably would be in the harbor regulations that those slips are for commercial fishermen. And I've forgotten, there's a term for, you bring your catch in and you get a ticket saying that you have
Yeah,
actually.
they
sold.
do a
Yes.
cat report at the end.
Yeah, so that not only that they maintain a commercial license. But I think the harbor regulations are a good place to
Okay,
put that.
yeah, so I just think that getting that level of detail and specificity is important to allaying concerns. With, I think another data point that would be helpful is, because I didn't see it, if I missed it, apologies, but how many people actually use the transient docks? You know, I go there and it's full, but I don't know if people are staying for 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. So what is, I know he has the data, it's on DocWat, right? So actually being specific, on a sunny Saturday or a sunny Sunday, here's how many, you know, people were visiting Manchester. Because all I've heard are the anecdotal, you know, stories, which I have some of my own, but I think the data would be more powerful. And then the other thing I'll mention is I did send a note, the planning board asked for feedback from various committees, so I sent a note to Bike and Ped Chair and Downtown Improvement Chair, suggesting that they engage their members and weigh in. Haven't heard anything back yet. As far as the pilings, I think the pilings, you know, a simple rendering would be helpful. I don't, it's in the eye of, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I was at Hingham Shipyard yesterday. Every slip has a piling. And it's a beautiful harbor. It's beautiful. So I don't see the problem.
I was down there this afternoon. I'm visiting a Monday. The float was pretty much full, and some of my friend came in with fairly large our catamaran. And they move stuff around, but and Bion has the fiscal data from last year, where after DocWat fees, they took in $36,000. They spent about $18,000.
Yes, he had the financial fee information. I just thought it would also be helpful, like the numbers of, you know, boats or that might also add to his story. It wasn't just financial, but because that's the benefit to the town, but how many people are actually coming into the restaurants and shops and that kind of thing. I see a lot of people in the restaurants if I'm there at lunch or dinner. Strangers I'm not familiar with, they leave and they walk to the, you know, to the transit dock. So I know it's happening, but I only have anecdotal stories. I don't have any real data.
Someone's piling up those barrels of Reed's Park. I'll tell you that
Yeah.
much.
I guess. I think having a connected walk is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's good I think it'd be good for the town. If you're in Masconomo Park and you can walk across and be right on the water,
It's a different experience.
it's a different experience.
And say, I want to do this.
Yeah.
I think that it's gonna be missed if we don't do it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Actually, Bion even said at the planning board meeting, he said, the little bump out they have now for the staff, people just walk down there and chit chat. And I was like, yeah, I do that too.
Yeah.
You know, because some of us just like to look at boats. I mean, we
Yeah.
just like to look at the names and what kind of boat. And so we just go out there.
Chat with the people.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, yeah. We're there for a long time.
I'd do it if my dog would do the ramp. She's not ready for that. I'm not gonna carry her down because that's silly.
I guess the planning board is meeting on the 22nd.
A week from tonight.
Yeah. And I agree with those of you who said Bion could present a stronger case. But perhaps somebody, I will be elsewhere, somebody could
Likewise.
go to the planning board meeting and say that generally the select board thinks this is good for town business, good for the town,
I can do
and,
that.
and financially sound.
All right, so that's Monday night?
Yes.
Next Monday.
And that's
I can
first on
do
the
that.
agenda this time.
Oh, was it first?
No, CST is first.
No, they decided,
Oh, they did.
Remember they put CST back to 8 o'clock? We'll have to check the agenda, but I know that it was discussed last week that because of the, oh, no, I'm sorry, you're right.
It
8
was
o'clock.
switching 3 different.
CST
public
is moving up.
programs, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's right, to CST, rather than have them hanging around with all their paid consultants.
Yeah.
That's right, I'm sorry.
All right, so I
So a couple of drinks before I show up.
better not if I need to say something. So, okay, 6:30, 7, I'll
Yeah,
figure it out.
Yeah, and
Okay.
just
We're
one
supportive.
minor,
Yeah.
I know that Fisherman will be here.
Yeah.
I believe that Byron's has been speaking with the chamber
Mhm.
back and forth, give them their information they need.
Yeah.
So we'll just add our voice to it.
in the financials, right now, about half of what comes in after dock walk goes to the staff that puts boats where they keeps the thing operating. Part of that cost is you have to have somebody there from 8 o'clock in the morning until sunset.
Mhm.
And it doesn't, expanding the area where they can tie up boats is not going to put that much more.
That won't
You
change.
said to add one more employee.
Yeah, right, so,
So it's not.
so it will produce even more
Right.
revenue than is current.
And the staff has an excellent reputation. To go on Dog Walk, we got a 5-star rating and all of the comments on there about how wonderful the staff is, how helpful they are. And I mean, he's running a real good ship there, no pun intended. Okay.
Sandy has her hand up.
Sandy,
Hi, thank you. I don't know if this is open meeting or not, so thank you for letting me speak. I think that the design renderings are going to be extremely important to view, as we had done for Tux Point, to see what it looks like at high tide, at low tide, in the winter, what happens to the docks during the summer. Also, I was a little confused. My question is that if the docks are used for fishermen, that's different than people coming in, visiting town and using going to shops and restaurants and things like that. So I think the detailed financials of what it costs to maintain all this, what it's actually gaining us, what it can be losing us regarding the views and why our town is so special, I think is really important versus just jumping to promote this. Thank you.
just to be clear, one small section is devoted to the fishermen. And the majority of the expansion is for transients.
Yeah, I think separating all that out and doing the numbers that way and seeing what it gains regarding supporting the fishermen and supporting the town and all that, I think is really important before casting a vote. So thank you.
Fine, I think we know where we're going.
Mhm.
Great. All right. Now, on to the fascinating process of reserve fund and interdepartmental transfer requests. Of which we have a few.
There's a few.
More than a few.
So there are more this year because of the salary reserve account and the need to do some transfers from that. That account that was established. When we approved the FY24 budget originally, we did not have union contracts finalized, so those were finalized after the budget was set. In the budget, we had anticipated a 2.5% increase. With inflation running high last year, we settled with the unions at a 3.5% increase. And so the voters approved a $50,000 salary reserve account at the fall town meeting. And so now we are at the end of the fiscal year, divvying up that fund into the various departments to cover the primarily to cover those higher COLA increases. So that's one batch of approvals. That's one page that lists all the different departments and where the 50,000, how it's divvied up into those different accounts. The next batch is departmental transfers. These are allowed through the town meeting vote to happen in May and June, after your approval and finance committee approval. So there are another series of requests, taking monies that were unspent in a particular line and transferring it to an account that went over the projection for expenditures. Most of those are, fairly typical. There are some exceptions. There's a large transfer for, actually, that was a reserve account. I'm gonna say the chemicals for the water. I'll get to that one in a second. The largest one was in terms of the departmental transfer covering the overage in legal, and that was primarily for the appeal of the 40B project, so the defense of our ZBA's denial before the state board. That was an expensive endeavor. And so there was a large transfer there, 120,000 from the health insurance line. We have been saving more than anticipated on health insurance as new hires have been opting out of town insurance, as they have opted to stay on a spouse's or partner's plan. So we are seeing a little movement there because we have increased the percent contribution that new hires made in order to stay on, in order to have town health insurance. The other high one that was out of the ordinary was for electricity cost, mainly for town hall. Part of this is a timing issue. We're still working with our solar vendor and National Grid to work out the credits. Going back and forth with them quite a bit. I think we will get there eventually, but we're not there yet. So we do need to be paying bills. We're not getting credit for the credits we think we have. So that's a work in progress, and but to cover it for now, we need to pay the bill. And then finally, the other bucket, the final bucket, is from the finance committee reserve account, $190,000 as a reserve account. The largest sum is targeted towards the water department, and we have seen much higher expenses for the chemicals that we're using. Those costs have skyrocketed in the last year or so. And a little bit for higher electricity use, but the majority of that higher cost is for the expense of the chemicals. Supply chain issues have hit that industry hard, and costs have gone up significantly. So 75,000 of the FinCom money is targeted towards paying that higher expense for the chemicals and electricity in the water department. There are miscellaneous ones as well. Like you say, there's this long list of these. Most of them are relatively small. 1,000 here, a couple thousand there.
I've got a question. So the solar credits from where?
So we signed on to get our electricity, town electricity from a solar farm in Haverhill. And we receive a 15% discount because of that. And that 15% discount is what is taking time, is the lag to show up on our National Grid bill.
Right. Didn't know that.
And, that's the timing issue that we're fighting.
That go away with the electricity aggregation that we're still working, or?
No, that's separate.
Okay.
It is separate. The aggregation is for residents.
Yep.
What's the bottom line?
Bottom line is we're transferring.
Well, actually, bottom line overall on the budget.
Bottom line overall, the budget is positive. So we are finishing the year in the black
by,
By how much?
by probably, 250, 300,000.
on a $40 million. All right.
So that goes into. fund
Okay, we
balance.
each get a 50% raise.
Yeah,
So that goes into
on a
fund
40 million
balance.
That
budget.
goes into fund balance, yes.
Okay.
I know we've been talking a lot about the importance of seeing the big picture and looking for the big rocks. And I got a little rock question. And this is the transfer to inspectors' expenses. And it appears to be coming from the North Shore Regional Vocational Technical High School line. And my question is, I thought they sent us a bill. We send them a check for that amount. How does there happen to be $2,500 to move to the inspector's account?
Yeah, so they send us an estimated bill. And then they send us a final bill. We base the budget on the estimated. And so that final bill was slightly lower than the estimated bill.
That's unusual.
So what you
So
what you
Jeff-
get
Jeff-
for a number at town meeting
Yeah.
is, it's a preliminary number from the year before.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so if say this year you have 13 students,
Mhm.
next year, that's what you're gonna get billed for. But last year, you could have had 10 students and got billed for 13. Right, you would have got billed that year for 10, but you had 13. So they don't know in September who's gonna show up. Or if you have someone that shows up for a month, doesn't like it, leave, so that all has to get worked out. So you get a final bill at the end, basically.
Based on.
So 2,500 is pretty close.
Yes.
I mean, if you go up one or two students,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's tens of thousands of dollars.
well, how much, what?
I mean, it's, what's the cost per student? It's probably 20.
Yeah, 20.
20
well, by the
something.
time it's like 23, but.
So if you miss by one student or so,
Yeah,
That's a
it's
lot
a
of money.
big, difference.
Okay,
yeah.
fine.
It's a big difference because we have a small percentage of
I
kids there. So every, 10% can be one kid, you know what I mean?
Okay,
Or
that,
roundabout.
I,
So you're
it was a small
take care
one,
of-
I now understand.
Pebbles all square away.
became a big rock.
Oh, it's just, I didn't
She had a
realize.
question.
Yeah.
She got it answered. All good.
Yeah.
All good.
All good.
Okay,
All good.
Okay.
are there other questions on individual items or can we?
I just look at it, Sarah Melish has pulled this apart. and
So the finance committee did approve all of these at their meeting the other night.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you need one motion for everything?
I
or-
hope so.
You could have a motion to approve all of the transfers as presented this evening.
Then that's what you're gonna get.
And that's yours.
I move that the select board approve the reserve fund and interdepartmental end of year transfer requests.
Second.
Further discussion? John,
Yes.
Anne says yes, Kathy,
Yes.
Yes,
Brian,
yes.
Yes.
excellent.
I thought this was gonna take forever. We were doing one at a time.
Oh,
That's why I have the
Fortunately,
question.
whoever put together the motion sheet. had a
Thank you,
better
Rick.
idea. Okay. On the Parks and Recreation Committee appointment, there were two candidates, one position, and Cheryl has
Made a
made
recommendation.
a recommendation.
Yeah. So I will move that the board appoint Peter Staridi to the Parks and Recreation Committee for a term to expire on June 30th, 2027.
Second.
yes.
That was John. Anne says yes, Kathy,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
and Jeff. Just in case somebody's
Somebody
trying to
else.
make notes from the
Right.
and doesn't know who we are, which is unlikely. Okay. Liaison updates. I will start by saying that I totally missed making any contact with the school administration before they left on vacation. And we get back in touch in early September. I think we've had enough MBTA zoning updates for 1 year, so skip that information. And I'm slightly worried about the fact that about 15 turkey vultures have decided to settle on the top of the middle high school in the area, the connector between the middle school wing and the high school wing at the top. And you go by there and you see these big black birds.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're turkey vultures.
Wow.
I wonder what died up there.
I don't know.
The kid up there.
Maybe anyway. Jeff?
I was away last week, but I did see some of the planning board meeting, and we already talked about the docks and all that, and they had their so they talked with cell signaling, and that project looks pretty good. There's a lot of green stuff going on in that building and whatnot. I haven't seen a harbor advisory committee. I was gonna talk to Carl, but there's nothing posted for meetings, you know, when,
I'm not sure of their
do
next
they
meeting.
skip July or something
They,
like that?
they often do.
Yeah, I thought so.
I think they were planning on meeting in
I
September.
was gonna say, it may be
Yeah.
in September.
But,
At that point, excuse me, I think at that point, they were also gonna discuss the definition of what's commercial the vessel for the Morse Pier and incorporate that into the regulations.
Resolution, yes.
Because that's what Carl said. Parks and Rec, phenomenal job, I think, over the 4th of July. A couple of hiccups, but nothing, I think the entire town deserves kudos as far as all staff. Greg will touch base, we'll touch upon the ongoing saga of the,
No, you can, go ahead.
well, no, it's scheduled for what, the next week.
Next week.
Next week, so they're gonna
Scheduled.
they'll do testing before,
Yes,
then.
so scheduled testing is Tuesday
Yeah.
at pickleball, and then pre-installation testing.
Right.
And then installation is supposed to be on the 24th,
Post
and then
installation.
post-testing afterwards.
Still, I tell you what, I drove by, maybe it was just too hot. Again, I move my car every 2 hours, thereabouts, off of Central Street, so I spin the beach and then I go take a look at what's going on at the pickleball courts. And I didn't see a lot of activity at the pickleball courts this weekend. I swung by today on the way home. I think that's, everything seems to be under control. We can't, people want to climb the fence and get in. Short of electrifying it, I don't know what we're gonna do. And then, so we'll have a better sense probably in a month after with the sound attenuation. There was a big, there was a, Chronicle did something on pickleball. Was it last week?
Last week, yeah, I think it was last week.
And Manchester resident was featured on it.
Feature.
Give you 2 guesses. And so, no, it's an ongoing saga, and we'll see what happens, what plays out. Probably at our next meeting, we'll have this discussion again.
Yep. I suspect we'll give another update then. So, yeah, the delay of all things, the Hurricane Beryl disrupted the delivery
Of course.
of the barriers. So we're supposed to arrive next week, and they're supposed to blitz it and put it up in a day. So hopefully that'll all go smoothly.
So I got.
Well, I attended the FinCom meeting with, you and John, aside from the water rates, and which is already discussed. They went, did a brief, look at the harbor launch. Greg, you mentioned there were 81 subscribers, and buy-in seemed to be keeping up with demand, and things were going well, so they took a look at that. And then there was a discussion on the budget process. I know you're gonna talk a little bit about that in the TA report. But it looked as though they want to really spend more, have more emphasis on completing the capital plan by the end of the year. Instead, they started it. So last year they did something new. They focused on capital first before going into the expense budgets, but there was a lot of back and forth and back and forth. And they really didn't nail down capital before they went into the expense conversations in the winter. So my impression was they really want to nail down the capital first, which I think is a good thing. And I'll let you talk about the rest of your report. Not much going on in the Board of Health meetings. I popped in on a couple. They were doing their normal operational looks at the, septic systems for private homeowners. I didn't see anything related to some of the bigger issues they're dealing with, so I'll just keep an eye on that. That's it.
Yeah, really just the seniors. This meeting, we were gonna have a discussion with the Cape Ann Transit folks on transportation for seniors. They could not make this meeting. They're going to be here August 5th, and the seniors are aware of that. And there'll be several of those folks, I think, here, because there are several that are pretty vocal about trying to expand our transportation offerings. There's an opportunity with Cape Ann. So we'll see how that goes. What is it, August? I don't know when it's in August.
August 5, yeah.
August 5.
August is here.
Yeah. And that's it. Library is kind of in an incubation time period with its application for expansion, and DPW was, of course, on the agenda tonight.
Breakthrough for the Colts again.
Yes. That's it.
Great. The consent agenda. Any questions on anything?
All set? Any questions? I move the select board approve the consent agenda items listed.
Second.
John,
I vote yes.
and the votes yes. Kathy?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, excellent. Town administrators.
Yeah, we've covered a good part of it here. Just a little bit more on the budget that Kathy was mentioning. So we will be working, I'll be working with staff to get the proposed capital plans in place on like mid-September, so that we can have that ready to present in early October to the board. So that'll include standard 5-year, but also to look at those major facilities and trying to get at that financing plan of some of those bigger rocks that are the real big rocks that we're facing. And so we'll be working on that over the next 8 weeks or so. And get that underway. Wasn't a lot of appetite in streamlining operating budgets, but hopefully we can have some more discussion on that. I still think there's some opportunity there. We talked a little bit earlier, presentation wise, what we can do to sort of steer the discussions, the bigger pictures rather than the nickels and dimes. And then, so we didn't do my review tonight, just what we're going to talk about. I didn't want to overload it. We'll do that next meeting. And at that time, I'll have a draft of an outline of the time frame for the recruiting process. Discussion on that as well. So,
The people who outlawed slavery didn't have your case in mind.
I'm sorry.
What I said is the people who outlawed slavery didn't have your case in mind.
Thanks. Thank you. That's all I need.
The final motion perhaps to adjourn?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
So some signatures to get.
Question, this, the compost facility, is that all of us or just?
Yeah, there's all of it. There's a second page.
Yeah, it's a little confusing.
Yeah.
Is that the one that's confusing?
That was confusing.
They'll figure something out.